clock on the dashboard read 3:30 a.m., and fatigue was slowly taking its toll on my weary mind. Seeking respite, I decided to pull over to the side of the road behind two other trailers, their presence offering a semblance of security in this isolated landscape. As I nestled into the cramped sleeping compartment, the silence of the night embraced me. The world outside seemed to hold its breath, its nocturnal creatures tucked away, hidden from view. The only sounds that permeated the air were the soft hum of my engine and the gentle rustling of leaves stirred by the breeze. Suddenly, a jarring bang shattered the tranquility, causing me to jolt upright in alarm. My heart raced, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I fumbled for the bat I kept within arm's reach. I peered out the window, searching for the source of the disturbance, only to be met with an empty expanse of darkness. Confusion gnawed at my senses, but before I could gather my thoughts, another resounding bang echoed, this time from the left side of the truck. My pulse quickened as my eyes darted to the opposite window, yet once again there was nothing but silence and an eerie stillness. Beads of sweat formed on my forehead, mingling with the furrowed lines of worry etched across my face. I strained my ears, hoping to catch a clue, a hint of what lurked beyond the metal confines of my truck. Bangs thundered against both doors simultaneously, reverberating through the cabin and shaking the very foundation of my vehicle. The force was so immense that it seemed as though an invisible assailant sought to tear my truck apart. Frantically, I tore open the curtains that separated me from the outside world, my wide eyes scanning the desolate landscape. To my dismay, there was no sign of the phantom tormentor, no indication of any tangible presence responsible for the unrelenting assault on my senses. Without a moment's hesitation, I abandoned any hope of comprehending this inexplicable phenomenon. With trembling hands, I lunged towards the driver's seat, my muscles propelled by a primal instinct for self-preservation. As the engine roared to life, I stole a glance at the two trailers ahead of me. In that fleeting moment, it was as if a silent understanding passed between us. We had all experienced the same inexplicable horror. Gripping the steering wheel, I accelerated into the unknown, leaving behind the eerie symphony of relentless banging. The road stretched ahead, bathed in the soft glow of the rising sun, casting long shadows that danced across the asphalt. With every passing mile, the once familiar landscape became an enigma, each tree and road sign holding the potential for hidden secrets. I yearned for answers, for someone who could shed light on the inexplicable events that had shaken my world. Determined, I reached out to the authorities, their voices crackling through the static-filled airwaves. Their words were laced with skepticism, their explanations failing to assuage the lingering unease that gripped my soul. Undeterred, I turned to my fellow truck drivers, hoping to find a connection, a thread of understanding that could weave a tapestry of truth. In dimly lit trucks and roadside diners, I met with wary faces, their eyes harboring secrets as deep as the road itself. Conversations took on an air of urgency, as if the weight of the unexplained pressed upon us all. The dialogue crackled with tension, sharp and witty exchanges betraying the shared burden we carried. The rhythmic hum of the engine provided a comforting soundtrack as I traversed the empty highway, my headlights piercing through the darkness like a lone beacon. On this particular night, fatigue had begun to gnaw at my bones, compelling me to find a spot to rest my weary soul. A truck stop appeared on the horizon, its neon lights flickering in the distance. But as I drew closer, a peculiar sight greeted me. A lot adjacent to the truck stop, shrouded in an eerie stillness. No lights adorned the area. No cars were parked in sight, and an unsettling absence of human presence lingered in the air. It was as if the world itself had decided to take a temporary hiatus. Yet, exhaustion was a formidable adversary, and despite my instincts urging caution, I succumbed to the allure of temporary respite. Screw it, I muttered, my voice laden with weariness. I'm tired. I need a break. With a slight shrug and a heavy sigh, I maneuvered my truck into the lot and brought it to a halt. The silence enveloped me like a thick fog as I settled into the confined space of my camper, seeking solace within its modest confines. Nestled in my makeshift bed, I closed my eyes, hoping for a few hours of uninterrupted slumber. Little did I know that this seemingly innocuous decision would steer me into the heart of a perplexing enigma. As the first rays of dawn began to pierce the horizon, gradually painting the world in muted hues of orange and pink, I stirred from my deep sleep. My eyes fluttered open, expecting to be greeted by the familiar surroundings of the truck stop lot. However, the scene that greeted me was far from what I had anticipated. I found myself parked on the side of the road, the asphalt stretching out before me like a winding serpent. Confusion etched deep lines on my face as I struggled to comprehend how I ended up miles away from my intended destination. The stark realization dawned on me. Something inexplicable had transpired during the night, silently whisking me away from the safety of the truck stop. But it wasn't just the physical displacement that troubled me. It was the mystery shrouding the circumstances. How had I managed to traverse such a considerable distance while I lay sleeping in my camper, oblivious to the world outside? The enigma grew deeper, intensifying the unease that coiled within me like a slumbering beast. As my gaze shifted to the rear-view mirror, my heart skipped a beat. Behind me, a trio of highway patrol vehicles stood like sentinels, their flashing lights casting an ominous glow. The sight further exacerbated my bewilderment, injecting a sense of urgency into my veins. I knew that answers awaited, lurking within the confines of the approaching patrol cars. They approached me with measured steps, their voices carrying a quiet authority. "Morning, sir," one of the officers greeted, his tone respectful yet tinged with curiosity. "You seem a bit far from where you parked last night." I offered a faint smile, attempting to hide the confusion that gnawed at my core. "Yeah, I don't quite know how I ended up here," I confessed, my voice laced with a touch of bewilderment. "Last thing I remember, I was settling in for the night at that empty lot next to the truck stop." The officers exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting a shared curiosity. "We received a report early this morning," another officer chimed in, his voice carrying a hint of intrigue. "A witness saw a man in a black jumpsuit running away from your truck and disappearing into a nearby field." My eyebrows furrowed, my mind racing to comprehend the implications. "A man in a black jumpsuit?" I repeated, my voice tinged with disbelief. "But how? The doors were locked from the inside, and there was no sign of a break-in." The officers nodded in understanding, their expressions mirroring my perplexity. "It appears someone had targeted your truck," the first officer remarked, his voice betraying with sympathy. "Perhaps they managed to gain access without leaving any trace. It's a puzzling situation, no doubt." A flicker of unease danced in my eyes as I pondered the implications. I was the passenger for this long drive, accompanying my mom as we embarked on a rainy autumn evening. The rhythmic patter of raindrops against the car's windows provided a soothing backdrop as the clock struck 10 p.m. Little did we know that our journey would take an unexpected turn and lead us into a perplexing encounter. As we cruised along the darkened highway, our eyes scanned the surroundings for any signs of life amidst the gloom. It was then that our headlights pierced through the darkness, revealing a surreal sight. A man, dressed in an elaborate jester's costume, stood perched upon the concrete divider, seemingly defying the laws of gravity. My mother flinched in surprise, her grip on the steering wheel tightening. with a mixture of curiosity and unease. She asked if I had also witnessed the enigmatic figure. I nodded in response, my gaze transfixed upon the jester, who seemed to radiate an otherworldly aura. Against the backdrop of the rain-drenched night, the jester continued his slow procession along the divider. His arms were slightly extended to the sides, as if he were balancing an invisible tightrope. Each step he took carried an air of deliberate intention, almost as if he were engaged in an eerie performance meant solely for our bewildered eyes. Unable to contain her escalating sense of alarm, my mother made the impulsive decision to pull the car over. The screech of tires mingled with the sound of pouring rain as our vehicle came to a halt. As the engine silenced, the mysterious jester carried on, unfazed by our presence. From the safety of our stopped car, we watched with a mixture of trepidation and fascination as the jester's behavior grew increasingly erratic. Cartwheels and handstands became his chosen forms of expression, defying the laws of physics and sanity alike. The rain cascaded down upon him, creating an ethereal spectacle that was equal parts mesmerizing and unnerving. Time seemed to stand still as we became ensnared in this bewildering encounter. Questions swirled our minds, desperately seeking answers to the enigma before us. Who was this jester, and what compelled him to perform such unconventional acts on a desolate highway in the dead of night? After what felt like an eternity, the jester abruptly ceased his acrobatic display. With a final flourish, he tipped an imaginary hat in our direction before disappearing into the rain-soaked darkness. We sat in stunned silence.